Hello everyone, my name is Garvin and I read things and chatter about them on the internet for your entertainment. So back when I did the Southern European Merfolk video, I talked about a story entitled The Yellow Dwarf. In that story were two monsters, and today I will attempt to create usable versions of them for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. One monster was a two-headed, eight-legged lion with hard, red, shell-like skin. So I'm going to call them Red Shell Lions until someone makes a better name. The other monster was a giant fire-breathing turkey. Why am I doing this, you ask? Because in the video, I promised that if I got 15 likes, I'd stat up the lion. If I got 20, I'd throw in the turkey. Well, as of this recording, the video has 22 likes from my always kind viewers. And, well, before we get started though, just a quick note, my Everwise patrons got an early look at these creatures, and you can join their ranks for as little as $1 a month and get to vote on polls for upcoming content, as well as get bonus content that's only released to my patrons. I have 2 active polls up right now. If you'd rather leave a one-time donation, there's also a link to my Ko-fi site. And if you do leave a one-time donation, please feel free to leave a request for future videos if you have something in mind. Now, before I get into the stats, let's talk about what we call the fluff, and this is the story element of the monster. So, in the story, there is a lady who is a type of fey creature or fairy who calls herself the Fairy of the Desert. She's not very good with names. But she is rumored to be incredibly wise and learned, and can give you an answer to a question if you can't find the answer anywhere else. The problem is, she's guarded by an army of red shell lions, and unknown to everyone else, the way is also trapped by a hideous little dude known as the Yellow Dwarf, who is actually operating in cahoots with her. For more information, go see the video, I've linked it below. And feel free to rejoin us once you've taken a look. I'll stop and wait for a second. Welcome back. I'm going to give you the game stats for these monsters so you can sick something on your players they've likely never dealt with before. Because, let's be honest, what are the odds that one of your players are watching this video? So, for the Red Shell Lion, we're actually going to cake the standard lion and use that as our base for alteration here. Now, just in case anyone watching has never played D&D before, I'm going to give you the quick down and dirty guide to reading stats. Starting on the left hand side here, you'll see something called armor class. That's how hard the creature is to hit. Hit points are how much damage it can take. Speed is how far it can move. Most D&D maps have a grid on them, with each square being 5 feet. So a lion with 50-foot movement can move 10 squares. Below that are the physical and mental stats for the lion. So strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Higher numbers are better. The main thing to look at is the number with the plus or minus sign next to it. That's what we call the modifier, and that's what actually gets added to the dice roll. So, if you see something in the rules that says, roll a strength check, it's telling you to roll a d20 dice and add or subtract the strength modifier from it for strength. Below that, you're going to see stuff like skills, senses, and a challenge rating, which tells us what this animal can do outside of combat really well and how hard it is to fight. A challenge rating of 1 means that the lion is a good fight for a first level party, usually assumed to be about 4 people. Below that and on the right hand side are special abilities and its attacks. I hope you got all that because I am moving on now. Because I found not everyone knows this, I just want to throw out that there are rules to creating monsters in the Dungeon Master Guide. And just in case you're one of those viewers who's never played D&D, The Dungeon Master Guide is a specific book with rules and advice for running a game of Dungeons and Dragons. Although you can run the game with just the player's book, I don't really recommend that if you've never played before. In fact, if you've never played before, find someone who has and play with them for a few games, because that'll help you really get the groove. The Dungeon Master Guide gives you a lot more to work with than the player's book, which really only has the rules that players need to know, like combat and things like that. That said, I am going to warn my listeners that most of the people who design for this game professionally don't really follow the monster crafting rules, and I've been playing since like 1994, so I'm willing to follow my gut over the rule book sometimes. So you've been warned that I'm not sticking strictly to those Dungeon Master rules here. So let's get back to our monster. Let's start with the stats. A strength of 17 is pretty good. 10 is the human standard. So we're saying that a lion is a lot stronger than a normal man here. That said, I'm going to boost the strength up to 19, which means we're adding a +4 to any roll modified by strength, and I'm going to boost its constitution to 16 because this thing has 2 heads and 8 legs. It is chunkier and likely harder to kill than your normal lion. That said, I also feel 8 legs is kind of awkward, so I'm going to leave the dexterity right where it is. And just to give you some context, Constitution is basically the health and vitality of the animal, and dexterity is its agility and manual control. I'm also going to leave the mental stats completely alone, because in the story they don't act as anything but trained animals. Now, if you want your version of this creature to speak or be more intelligent than a lion, perfectly okay. You'll need to boost its intelligence up to at least 7. And remember, the average human will have a 10 intelligence, so a intelligence 7 lion can speak, or at least understand speech, but is still going to be pretty dumb compared to a human. I'm fine leaving them at an animal level intelligence though, even though they have 2 heads. Just because that matches what we saw in the story. My next step is going to be to look at the hit points, because I increased the constitution of the red shell lion. That means its hit points go up. You'll see next to the 26, now the 26 is the average hit points a lion will have, but you'll see next to it, it says 4d10 plus 4, and what that means is roll 4 10-sided dice and add 4 if you don't want to use that 26, and that will give you amount of hit points for that individual lion. That +4 comes from the Constitution modifier, which on your average lion is just a +1, which means you add +1 to every dice being rolled. So you're rolling 4d10, you add 4. Makes sense, right? Well, I boosted the red shell lion's constitution to 16, which gives it a modifier of +3. So that means we're adding 3 points to every dice we roll. So if we stay at 4d10, that means we're adding 12. But in that case, even if I use the full maximum hit points, which I often do on my monsters because I'm a mean GM, and I also do that because some of my players read the monster entries and they're expecting the average HP, and I like to confuse them. That said, max HP at 4d10 plus 12 puts us at 52. And that's not going to last long against players who know what they're doing, especially since I'm aiming for the red shell lion to be fighting about level 5, level 6 characters. So we're going to increase the amount of these dice, which are called hit dice. In fact, we're going to more than double them, so I get a max of 130 hit points. And if that ends up being too rough, well, you can always trim down the hit points in a fight. That's kind of one of the little secrets of D&D. If the fight's going harder than you thought it would for your players, you can just start shaving hit points off your monster. No one's gonna know because no one can see it except you. So just keep that in mind. Oh, you often don't see this listed in the stat block, but each monster also gets something called a proficiency. A proficiency is a bonus to the dice roll for things that the creature, the character, or whatever is good at. Lions get a proficiency of 2. But the red shell lion's going to get boosted up to a proficiency of 3. Just so you're aware of that. Moving on. Our next step is going to be to look at their armor class, or how hard they are to hit. The story describes them as having red shell-like skins, so I'm going to say they have a higher armor class than lions. I don't want it too high though, because like I said, I'm aiming for players who are about 5th or 6th level, and I want to keep this a monster you use for people under 10th level. So this isn't what everyone does, this is just what I do. I look at the armor that players can wear as my sort of rough guide, and I'm going to say this skin is likely equal to a chain shirt, which is a type of armor, and that would put us at a 15 armor class. Because if you add the dex modifier, which is a 2, to the chain shirt base, which is 13, that puts us at 15. And that's a pretty good AC for people from 5th to 7th, because they can hit that without too much difficulty, but there is still a good chance that they'll miss, making the fight a bit more exciting. All this puts us in line for a monster that a group of characters from 5th to 7 would find a good fight, and you can always make a pact. No, excuse me, we're talking about lions. A pride of them to make a harder fight, or even put them up against higher level characters. And now the fun begins, because we're going to look at special abilities. I'm going to be honest with you guys, this is my favorite part of making monsters, because special abilities is what gives the creature character, for lack of a better word, in a lot of ways. Now, you can give creatures character through role-playing by pretending to be the creature and imparting that through action and words, but on a mechanical level, the special abilities tell you a lot about the monster in question. Now, I'm giving this thing 3 attacks, because it's got 2 heads, and the part that's facing the character's got 4 legs, so it should be able to at least claw twice and bite once. I'm also removing the special ability Pack Tactics, because with 3 attacks, if it's rolling with advantage, which is where you get to roll twice and take the highest roll, that means you would get 6 attempts to hit one character, and that would just rip through a 5th level character. So that might be a little much. I'm going to remove Pack Tactics to kind of keep this copacetic. Because I'm mean, but I don't want to be unfair. That said, an easy way to bump up the red shell lion is to go ahead and just put Pack Tactics right back in there. So multi-attack gives it 3 attacks. 2 claw attacks, 1 bite attack. I'm going to keep the pounce ability of the lion, because again, that adds to the character of the lion. It is something that wants to charge, leap, and drag its prey to the ground. Plus, that gives you a bonus bite attack, so if the pounce is successful, you can kick off 4 attacks in a round on your targets. We also add the 2-headed ability because it has 2 heads. This makes it harder to blind, charm, deafen, frighten, stun, or knock unconscious. Now, A lot of those terms I thought were self-explanatory. I don't think I need to explain blind, deafen, frighten. Charm is where you, usually through magic, convince a target that you are not an enemy and that you are actually good friends. And you can't, well, you can with a two-headed creature, but it's harder because they have resistance to it. And stun is literally where you stun someone and they lose a turn. Knock unconscious, I think most of you guys can figure out. I have faith in you. One last ability I add, I'm just entitling Cake. This is from the story, where the red shell lion will not attack a character who presents it a cake made of sugar, millet, and alligator eggs. Whether or not your characters should know that, I'm going to leave to the GMs. Now, I would recommend you have them find this out in story, by talking to NPCs or doing research. But if you just want to skill check it, I would make it an Arcana roll against a DC 15. Just to explain that to people who don't play D&D, DC stands for difficulty check. It's the number you have to roll higher on than the dice to be successful. So, a 15 is usually a pretty good, this is not common knowledge, but wouldn't be that hard to find out kind of thing. For Arcana, which is a type of skill dealing with magical knowledge. Lastly, the attacks. So I'm kind of turbo boosting the damage here because they are magical monsters created by a powerful fae in the story. And the story also tells us that the red shell lions had 4 rows of teeth. So I'm upping the bite damage to 3d8. You add strength, so that's 3d8 plus 4 damage. And we're going to boost the claws up to 2d8 plus 4. Now, d8 means an 8-sided dice. I realize I hadn't explained that. I apologize. So, there we are. The red shell lion. Now, fair warning, this build is completely unplay-tested. But I will put it in a Google document for anyone who wants to download it for themselves and give it a try. Let me know how it goes. That said, as a deal with you viewers, if you get me up to 15 likes again, I'll round up a band of brave volunteer and we'll do Monster Fight Night against a single red shell lion and then a pride of 3. And I will post that video of me and the players running this fight for you. And if we get up to 20 likes, the turkeys get to play. So feel free to jam on that thumbs up button if you want to see that. And that reminds me, I promised you turkeys, so I should stat those damn turkeys, shouldn't I? Now this is going to go a little faster because I'm not going to be explaining as much. That said, unlike the red shell lions, we can't start with a standard turkey for stats because turkeys don't have an entry with stats in D&D. And neither do chickens, which right now is very inconvenient for me, but to be fair, we don't play this game to fight livestock. Well, most of us aren't here to fight livestock. I'm sure there's at least one group out there who are living their best lives fighting nothing but pigs and cattle, and Godspeed to you maniacs. So I poked around, I asked for advice, and the consensus I found was that the vulture, which is a bird that is statted in D&D, comes pretty close to what most people agree a turkey's stats should look like. So we're going to run with that. We are going to make some changes here though. For example, vultures have a fly speed of 50 feet, and turkeys don't fly as well as vultures. So we're going to cut that fly speed down to 20 feet. We're also going to increase the strength of the turkey to 10 Because in the story, the Fairy of the Desert had a pair of turkeys pulling a cart. So they gotta be strong enough to pull a cart with some light weight in it. We're also going to increase the Constitution score because look at the vulture, look at the turkey. Look back at the vulture, look back at the turkey. Tell me the turkey doesn't have more Constitution there. I'm also going to give the turkey some natural armor, so it's a 13 to hit, just so it's not too easy here. Now, just so everyone's clear, I'm not trying to create stats for the baseline turkey. I'm going from the vulture straight to the magic turkey, just to make sure there's no confusion. In the story, the magic turkeys were able to do two things that made them exceptional: grow large and breathe fire. So we're going to go to the special abilities, and we're going to add the special ability Enlarge, which will work a lot like the spell with the same name, but I'm going to add some extra spice to this by having the turkey's Enlarge increase its strength to 14, which will give it a higher modifier. As for the fire breath, we're going to go pretty standard with it. I'm going to go with a cone, which is the shape the fire will take when the turkey breathes it out. It could be a cone or a line. I like cones more than I like lines. And we're going to use the standard save, which there's a formula for this. It's 8 plus the monster's Constitution modifier plus its proficiency modifier, which you probably don't see listed, but it's a 2. I double checked. So that brings us to a DC of 12. So that means when the turkey breathes fire, you gotta roll over a 12 or take full damage in the face. This turkey isn't meant to be a high-level monster. It's meant to surprise lower-level players and give everyone a bit of a chuckle. Although, if someone gets caught out with bad luck, they now have the story of being burnt to death by a giant turkey, and that's great too. Welcome to D&D. If you're not careful, giant turkeys will burn you alive. The fire breath will do 3d6 damage, and we'll also give the turkey the option of a d4 beak attack and a 1d6 claw attack. So, and just be aware, when it's enlarged, it gets an extra d4 of damage to any physical attacks. So when it's large, its beak does 2d4 and 1d6 plus 1d4. So that's a 6-sided and a 4-sided dice. So if you paired this guy up with a couple other monsters, I think you have a night going. This turkey can only attack once per turn, so choose your attacks wisely, my fellow GMs. Honestly, I think this works best if the turkey can strike from stealth, maybe by hiding it in a flock of normal turkeys, and as the players are trying to go through, a giant turkey just explodes in front of them and starts breathing fire. But you try it out however it seems best to you, and let me know how it works for you. So, as you've likely noticed, I sadly have no art of these monsters. I tried drawing for this video myself, but it didn't go well because I'm not a great artist. I keep trying, but maybe one day. So, I tried AI art, I apologize, and no one will ever know what I saved all of you from that day where I destroyed those things. And it's honestly better for everyone that way. If you're inspired to make some art of these monsters yourself, there's an email in the description, and please include how you'd like to be credited and any links you'd like me to include, because if I do get art of these monsters, I am going to want to make a video showing everyone the cool stuff you have done. And if anyone wants me to commission art, well, artists deserve to be paid. So you're going to need to click the Patreon and the Coffee link to get me to where I can commission art, because I'm not going to try AI art again. It just, no. No. Oh, also, please feel free to email me any stories of you trying out these monsters and how they worked for you. I'd be happy to hear about it. Well, lingering AI trauma aside, I think this is a good place to stop this week. If you'd like to see me tackle more creatures from earlier videos, like the Ono Centaur, maybe, just let me know below. I hope you found this video informative, or at least entertaining. If you did, please leave a like, comment, or even subscribe. All of these help me in my eternal struggle against the dread Lord Algorithm. Terror be on his name. I'd like to give a special thanks to Big Steve, my biggest supporter on Patreon. I hope you enjoyed these monsters, man. Next week, we head back to the sea to talk about the various mythological beings that didn't quite match the definition of mermaid I set out. I hope you join me for that, but until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and of course, keep reading.